Sim, we recently did an interview with you and Kevin Sayer from eBay.
That's right.
And you made some interesting comments, and one of them was we should be working to support the workflows at a deeper level among our end users.
Right.
And then you went on to say that it's not the book or the journal article, but how all the ideas work together.
Right.
Now, what is the role of libraries in looking past these individual containers of information and fostering the integration of ideas?
That's a good question. I think, you know, from my vantage point, the challenge at hand over the last 100 years has been a logistics problem. It's where is the piece of information? You know, it's a, you know, I said the word container because that book is a container of ideas, and you know how we use card catalogs and Dewey Decimal and as a methodology for how to sort these containers so that we could help people find what they're looking for. You know, that's a very technology-specific approach to deal with a brute force way of managing, you know, these objects. You know, you would never have thought to say, well, how do you manage what's within? You know, how do we break that container apart and say, what are all the things that are inside of it? Because that was never a capability. You know, you've been thought of as a crackpot. You know, what the technology allows us to do is to really break these things apart. You know, start to understand what is important within that book, what's important within that journal article, not just this journal has been cited 10 times. You know, impact factors, for example, has to mature in a way that, you know, understands the value of that work to others. So, you know, my premise is that, you know, we have to open up these containers. We have to start, you know, working the way these end users really look at it. They don't. It's not a logistics problem for them. They're actually working through ideas. They want to find the paragraph. They want to find the quote, the piece of data that they're looking for, and start weaving those things together. When we teach information literacy, it's about how do you know, build up the arguments that you're looking for. How do you get the citations to what you need? This is the linkages of all these ideas that substantiate the argument that's going forward. So I think, you know, a real challenge for our whole community is how do we get a deeper understanding of what's within the container, not just you know, which container should I get, or you know, what's the real value about it. You know, so that directionally that's where I was going with that, and I think it plays to the discussion I had earlier about the faculty member and how they read. You know, they're looking for a particular thing in an article. You know, they may not actually care about the article at all. One of the most widely cited articles is one where the methodology that was in the paper, that was the first time it had been articulated. Okay, and the paper was widely cited because of the methodology. The conclusions were suspect, but the methodology is why it was valued. There are other, you know, there are other works, and you've read about them over time where you know, people think that the work was done poorly, and it's cited because this is a bad example. Okay, well, you know, do you want impact factors to say that, you know, wow, you know, you really got a lot of citations? Well, that's because, you know, your work is suspect, or in that case, your conclusions were counter to what everybody else is finding. You know, we know, you know, as faculty, that literature reviews are valuable.
Right.
Okay, literature reviews are never cited, and so what happens is that the only people that write literature reviews are people that already are full professors. Okay, now you could argue that that's because they've been around since the foundings of whatever, and that they're probably the best informed to be able to make such a type of comment. But this is a relationship of that content to even how scholarship is thought about. So I think if we understand how people are using things, citation is just one way of showing that relationship.
It sounds like we need to have a broader idea of what impact factors are on what you're saying.
Right. What's the value that we're really trying to encourage? It's the value of pushing ideas forward.
It sort of points up what we were talking about this morning about focusing on librarians rather than libraries. Like what the librarian can bring to the table because of all the skills that librarians have, as opposed to what the library can bring to the table.
I think that's spot on. I think if librarians were to have engage the relationship with the early to senior researcher, they have the purview, they have the breadth to see how it's not just getting you what you're looking for. It's actually thinking about, and this is literacy has been taught for decades. So it is in the calling card of what a librarian should be doing. But I think we just need to push that forward, and that would really help. Show the value to everyone.
Talk about the relevance of libraries, and are we still relevant? And it might be better to focus on librarians, the relevance of librarians, as opposed to the library as place.
We have, we really are talking about relationships among ideas and relationships among people.
Correct.
And librarians are people. They play a big role in this kind of thing with scholars and students and so on. So I think
there was a point about serendipity and how do you make serendipity occur. I mean, part of the when back in the day when you'd go through the stacks, that was a way to get serendipity. When I got the Academy of Management journal, and I'd read articles